So upon seeing that there was a new DC movie coming out, which was tethered to the Joker origin story, I knew I really, really wanted to talk about this. And to start, this is Namii Mercury, and this is my podcast from Mercury Media. I occasionally do want to discuss things happening currently in pop culture, as it fascinates me to decipher the trends and see what exactly they're pointing towards, and also to explore the symbology and the mythology behind these influences and these archetypal forces. So, with the Joker, I have such a profound history with this figure. Really, it's etched so deep into me. In fact, I have multiple tattoos that reference its influence, and one of which is a sacred clown, a jester skull, and another one which is an occult symbol with a lot of Joker, ha ha ha, the red bloody ha ha ha's surrounding it. And the reason why I resonate so strongly with the symbol is because I resonate point blank with chaos and the creative component of chaos, and chaos as a force of creation and the ability to rise through the constant death and rebirth of which is quite maddening, and which is very much prone to drawing people into a sort of Joker-like sensibility, though not as sadistic, I would say, and not hell-bent on societal destruction, but more sort of liberated. And there's two sides to the faces of the Joker, one of which is one who is free and free unto themselves and free unto their power, and the other of which is enslaved towards vengeance and towards revenge of this oppressive society. And this is what you see in this new movie coming up, at least from what the feature trailer seems to reveal. It's very much a story of someone who is sort of beaten down by society and made to believe that they must be avenged in a way, in a very twisted, sort of nonsensical way. Not entirely nonsensical. It's really nonsensical in a very sensical way. I'm getting very riddlesome, but it's not to be unexpected. Wow, my words are twisting weird in conversation about Jokers and chaos and the riddlesome aspects of reality. I personally resonate to the face of the sacred clown in a sense. That archetypal force guides so much of my life and my path, and so that connection I feel to the Joker is one which resounds through to my core. And that does not mean I'm a deranged person. It's just referencing back to that sort of creative chaos and that sense of understanding madness, understanding the darkness of the psyche, and finding liberation through it. And I think that's why the Joker is such a profound influence right now in culture, and why this very beautifully poignant movie is coming out, which is showing an origin in a way that's so humanly accessible. You feel the Joker, you really feel his presence in a way that we've never before felt him. He's always been this super distant villain who we couldn't relate to at all, but now we understand him. Now we see him echoed in the faces of our youth and the people who turn against us, school shooters, terrorists, the mad and deranged who are just fighting a society that fights them, oppresses them. And it's scary. And it's just a morally sort of moral carousel is the best way I can think of it. No one really knows what's going on, and we don't know what to make of it all. We try to cast everyone as either good or bad, and yet we find ourselves drawn into the spaces in between. Are the psychopathic really psychopathic? Or are they just incredibly damaged by their circumstances? And there's no excuse for their behavior, of course. They need to be detained or corrected or whatever you want me to say. But there is a deeper force that draws them into those behaviors that we don't address because we don't want to acknowledge any or internalize any sort of blame that's so much easier to cast out onto the evils of the world. And back to the point I was originally making, I think that's why the Joker is so particularly profound and influenced at this stage, and why he's coming out and he's going to hit theaters with a bang. Particularly, it's going to be very moving and transformative, I imagine. And I just feel like it represents the zeitgeist in which we are so ensconced in this dark chaos and sort of understanding the shadow of this monster that we've all created. But everything has two faces. One face is the face that everybody likes to wear, or they strive to wear, and that is the face of this sort of new age leader who is fluid and transformative and creative in the way that they handle the tumultuous waters of change. And then there's the other side of the face, which feels totally distant from us and sort of cast out and made into this monster that we can all sort of attack and grieve and fight. And that face is the face of the individuals who feel scorned, who lash back at society, whatever form it takes. Those who feel meaningless and purposeless and powerless, ultimately. And so they turn sour. They go batshit, cuckoo in the brain. They go a little bit mad. They go crazy. They go out of their mind. They do what the Joker does. They transform into the bad seed, which starts a revolution of other bad seeds who are looking for bad seed leaders. It's a very complex dynamic, but it's fascinating. If not a little bit unnerving, I guess, considering how close you are to the fire. I've always observed it from the outskirts, and I have this understanding of madness and what comprises it, but I've never had any trauma inflicted on me by those people, so I can't really speak from a place of authority regarding how those experiences should be taken or internalized or transmuted. I just understand the rhythms of their chaos, and it's a very, very fascinating thing to explore. At the core, the Joker represents, as I've been saying multiple times, madness, chaos, the psyche, the dark side of the psyche, the repressed, outcast side of the psyche, the part of us that society chooses to push away, the taboo, the fringe, the upside down, often sinister elements of our being that most often cannibalizes from the shadows. And yet it's a sort of, the Joker takes it and it brings it to this frequency of total sort of liberation, and where all of that boiling, roiling, just bubbling madness is granted a form, an embodiment, and a sense of its power finally, where it was felt powerless before. It's all at once granted this explosion of magmic expression, and it sets loose the crazy. And it's absolutely, I mean, I find it beautiful in an abstract way. I'm drawn to chaos. I'm drawn to sort of horrific expressions, and understand that when I'm saying this, I mean abstract expressions of the horrific, not actual horrific events and people who are harmed and whatever. I am not a sadist in any sort of way. In certain arenas, maybe, but not in terms of like general human affairs. Yeah, anyways, I think there's like a Salvador Dali sort of artistic flair to it that really speaks of societal decay and sort of dystopian realization. And I think we personally always have this sort of dual force of societal development working in tangent. One side is utopian, the other side is dystopian, but they work in constant balance, and they play off of each other. It's kind of like the epitome of Batman and Joker, always in constant balance, one representing idealistic visions, the other representing sort of counter-idealistic, I guess, visions of decay versus the sort of retribution that Batman poses for the growth of society. But is it really growth, or is it just compensation for his parents' death? And so you have to really wonder, are our ideals really rooted in some organic part of us, or are they just compensation for the places where we've been hurt? And that's where you find the intimate connection between Batman and Joker. It's essentially pain. It's just pain expressed in different ways. Pain expressed in one way, which is towards helping others, and pain expressed towards hurting others and showing them that you've been hurt and bound within these systems. So it's really a unique sort of cosmology. The Batman universe is a very fascinating mythos in a way, because it represents the dark and gritty, raw expression of that pain that we all face in living as humans in these sort of desensitized societies where no one is awake to each other's pain. No one is awake to the things that we're all simultaneously going through. Yet we all feel so isolated and alone and numb to it. So we have certain archetypes which come forth and express that in a very saturated, potent, and intensified way, just as Batman and Joker. I personally resonate with Poison Ivy. I got a little bit of plant fetish, but all that. Hypnosis, poison, it's good for the soul. Anyways, I think it's going to be a brilliant movie. Looks to be very transformative. I think it will represent a collective shift in how we view the villain, parentheses, the villain of society. And I think it will bring a sort of healing through this other perspective of the Joker, through his origin, through understanding that we are all but a step away from that madness of the criminal. We must understand that they were once like us. Sometimes, not all the time. Sometimes they're just psychopathic nutcases who really are damaging to humanity. But other times were actual human beings who had dreams, desires, and ideals and could not cope with the intensity of society. So they reacted in a very malefic way. And we sometimes must acknowledge that understanding that can actually heal those people and heal that collective pain and trauma that keeps them acting out in those patterns. So, I advise everybody to go see that. Huge fan of the Joker in a very archetypal way. Thank you for listening, and stay tuned for more musings on media, pop culture, and whatever else you want to hear me say when I end this. Bye. This is Namii Mercury, clicking out.
Let me ask you something. What does it matter if you send me back to the asylum if it doesn't matter to me? I've proven my point. Gordon's been driven mad. I've demonstrated there's no difference between me and everyone else. All it takes is one bad day. That's how far the world is from where I am. Just one bad day. You had a bad day once, am I right? Oh, I know I am. I can tell. You had a bad day and everything changed. Dressing up like a flying rat doesn't hide it, it screams it. You had a bad day and it drove you as crazy as everybody else, only you won't admit it. You have to keep pretending that life makes sense, that there's some point to all this struggling. You make me wanna puke. I mean, what is it with you? What made you what you are? Girlfriend killed by the mob, maybe? Brother carved up by some mugger? Something like that, I know. Because something like that happened to me. Sometimes I remember it one way, sometimes another. If I'm going to have a past, I prefer it to be multiple choice. My point is, I went crazy. And I'm smart enough to admit it. Why can't you? By clinging to reality, you're denying the reality of the situation. I mean, do you ever think about how many times we've come close to World War III over a flock of geese on a computer screen? Silly goose, it's all a joke. Everything anybody's ever valued or struggled for, it's monstrous. Why can't you see the funny side? Why aren't you laughing?
Because I've heard it before. And it wasn't funny the first time.